Hi, friends. Welcome back to Live at the Roxy. Very special show today because my dear friend, stand-up comedian, host Tehran is in the house, and he is not wearing a bathrobe. So that's how you know it's a big day. Tehran, I don't know when the last time I saw you out of a bathrobe was.
Well, it's very difficult to loot in bathrobes, so I just want to let you know I took time out of looting just to be here. So that's how important you are to me, Roxy.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So that's what the hoodie's all about.
Yeah, the hoodie.
Yeah. How many of those hats do you own, Tehran? Because it's
I
always so clean.
probably have over 200 Tehran
Eh,
hats for myself.
Is that true?
It is a real thing.
Damn. Guys, we have a lot to talk about today. Obviously, continuing discussions with Black Lives Matter, taking your questions, going through everything. But I want to start just checking in with you, Tehran, about what's going on with you. What is the day-to-day looking like for you right now?
Well, every single day is I've
Different.
become a social justice warrior, something that's been within me and now is being unleashed.
I've seen that on your Twitter. You were not SJW proofed before, and now you are.
It's not that. If you actually listen to my comedy is specifically social commentary. I am a big observer, and I'm an equal opportunist. So I don't want anyone to think that I just target and profile like the police. No, I am very broad in intention and speak on social commentary. Right now, my commentary is focused and it's a lot more deliberate. So while I still present a lot of my truths, the only difference is I do so with a comedic element and humor, because when the truth hurts, tell a joke.
How are you doing that right now? Because I don't even understand. The job of a comedian right now seems impossible. I don't understand how you're able to do that. Even inside you, how do you craft that? How do you sit down and think, yeah, this is the worst thing that's ever happened, and I'm going to just make it funny some fucking how?
Well, that's the concept of comedy.
Yeah.
Reality, tragedy is like a close-up. It's shot from a very close angle. It's like a microscope. While comedy is shot from far away. It's a long lens. It's a telescope. That's how it works the best. And honestly, the best comedy is social commentary. Good comedy makes you laugh, but great comedy makes you think. The people that have made us the most aware of social issues and agenda have been comedians, whether it's Eddie Murphy, George Carlin, Dave Chappelle, Wanda Sykes, Whitney Cummings, people who are brilliant. They're philosophers, even politics. Sure, we get into politics, but Jon Stewart, Trevor Noah, Stephen Colbert, Bill Maher, they're just comedians. And I use the term just comedians in the dismissive way so many people try to shed light on our craft is they preface it with, oh, they're comedians. That person's a comedian. Just know Tehran's a comedian. As if,
so they're saying that because they're saying whatever you say is not as relevant for some reason?
Exactly. They try to dismiss the truth that we often shed on the world because it's easier. A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. So we're just that spoonful of sugar, and no one understands how viable and necessary it is at times.
Right now, though, I feel like it would be different if we weren't obviously for a million reasons, it would be different if we weren't in quarantine. But if you were right now actively going to the Laugh Factory and performing every single night right now or something, or wherever, would you make this your entire set? Or would you not, because you're trying to be an escapism place? I mean, I don't even know how to phrase that, but you know what I mean?
I do. And it's interesting you bring that up. So every day, myself and a strong lineup of comedians go to the Laugh Factory Instagram Live, and we perform from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And we perform in front of no audience. The chairs are all empty. It's quarantine. We adhere.
So you're actually going to the Laugh Factory. So you are physically there, but nobody else is there other than the other comedians. Wow.
2 or 3 other comedians. And in fact, a lot of the protests are right outside the Laugh Factory. So we protest, we perform, and then we resume protesting. Comedy is a form of protest when used effectively. Personally, we address the situations. If you think about even the quarantine was such a big deal. This pandemic is something we're all in it together. Think of all the memes that you looked at and you laughed and they made you smile and they were informative, but you looked at them and they gave you a perspective. Those came from the minds of comedians. That's where these memes come from. They don't just pop out of thin air, and trust me, Fat Jewish doesn't come up with any of them. We do.
I know, but I still give him props for that hair.
For the hair, of course, and for cultivating all of our material all in one place and taking credit for it. I give him props for everything. I'm not a hater. I just want everyone to be aware where the credit actually lies is within the same people we often dismiss.
So you said that you are protesting, going inside, recording, going back outside. So are you, and I know comedy is a form of protest, but are you walking the streets protesting? Are you part of the protest right now?
I am part of the protest, and it's for the reasons of solidarity. It's for the reasons of unity. It's for the reasons of civil liberty. It's for the reasons of frustrated human beings. It's for the reason of black rights. It's for the reason of civil rights. I am in solidarity with the protests. Even with the joke that I made at the beginning, I am very much against the looting. And people need to understand. We learned about this when we were in high school. There was this thing called a Venn diagram. If you remember the Venn diagram, circles, then they overlaid each other. Exactly.
Even that's not a good symbol for me to do.
That's like the white power symbol. I'm gonna give you a pass. No,
yeah, but I was trying to. I was trying to Venn diagram.
I mean,
nothing I can do. It's just like, fuck, man. They've taken everything from us. Not me, us. I mean, people, like the assholes. So I can't even fucking make a Venn diagram in my hand. Those fucking.
It's not getting better, Roxy. It's not getting better. But I will say this.
You know where my heart is.
It's very frustrating right now, and I can understand, especially because honestly, we were speaking about this before. You have always been an incredible ally, and as an ally, I respect you for doing the certain things that allies do. For example, number one, you're very aware. You educate yourself. You inform yourself. Number two, I've seen you. You have conversations, even when these conversations are uncomfortable. Very important. And you have them and include, and mostly with people of color. Therefore, you're actually getting a strong perspective. It's not just a group of like-minded people having a like-minded discussion. You're actively participating in conversations. And most importantly, you're listening. You listen. And even times when you don't condone a behavior, I have seen you. You try your best to understand it. And that's extremely important right now.
I thank you for saying that. I feel like I still have a long fucking way to go. Because
we all do.
For sure. But like, even I was happy to participate yesterday in Blackout Tuesday. Maybe for different reasons than I don't know. I really tried to take what it was to heart and not just take the day off of socials or post a square. Like, I want to fucking learn and I want to understand more and I want to be able to educate my peers. And I will say that yesterday I was just like, just trying really hard to know more because I feel like I do what you're saying, but still I'll do shit like what I just did where it's like, obviously that's fucking stupid. And I know you know where my heart is, but I have a long way to go, which makes me know that some people have a really fucking long way to go. And that's the biggest problem right now is trying to fill that gap because I don't know that some people will ever be able to. I mean, Tehran, do you think that at some point you should just give up on them and there's no way you're going to change their mind and there's nothing you can say to make them not feel like they're right or that their hashtag all lives matter is the way?
No, I never feel that way. In fact, a lot of my peers do. A lot of people are like, why don't you just block this person? Why don't you just stop? And
you don't ever block anybody.
I never block anybody unless the only time I block someone is if it becomes extremely threatening to someone else in my form, meaning if they threaten physical harm, especially on a female. I am very sensitive to that because that is a very real threat. Other than that, if it's an attack towards me, then I have the privilege of not having to be as worried about it. And I feel that that's a concept that we need to understand. And I feel that way in general as a male. When I leave a comedy club, I just need to walk to my club, to my car. When a female comedian leaves their comedy club, She has to worry about not getting raped and or murdered. That's a different sense. That is what male privilege is about, is not having to think of it in those terms. And I'm very aware of that. So I'm protective in that regard. However, personally, I can take the attacks, I can take the abuse, I can take the curse words. It's not because it doesn't mean anything to me. It's because I realize what it means to them.
And you feel like everybody there, though, is capable of change? Everybody?
It's not about if they're capable of change. It's what change represents. And this is what I mean. Me responding to someone who writes a negative comment to me, they aren't the only person that's reading that comment. There might be 1 or 2 or 10 or 100 people reading that comment. Many of them are in agreement, but some people may be on the fence. And my reaction, my kind response to a hateful message can actually possibly overturn the way someone's thinking. That's the concept of a fire, right? If you take a candle and you light this candle, now you have a candle and it has a beautiful, powerful flame. You can use that candle to light another candle. Now you have 2 candles. The first candle's flame has not been extinguished. It didn't lose its potency. It's still just as capable of lighting another candle. Now you have 2, and now you light 2 more. 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, 16 becomes 32. Next thing you know, an entire nation has caught fire because of the inspiration of the first candle. Mm-hmm. That's the power of words. That's the power of change. Even when Martin Luther King was alive, and I've never heard more Martin Luther King quotes in my life.
I know. I saw you go off on this on Twitter too, and I hear you. I feel like he's being, first of all, misquoted and misrepresented in so many different ways. But go ahead. Sorry, Tehran.
No, I completely agree. It's not even just misquoting. It's the overuse of one person's quote. And I said this on social media as well. Martin Luther King, King is his last name. It's not his designation amongst the Black people. Martin Luther King didn't invent Black people. He didn't invent Black struggle. He didn't invent Black protest. Please stop quoting Martin Luther King to us in one form or another, whether it's pro or it's anti. And the reason is because what it shows me is it shows me that you're limited on your knowledge of the Black struggle and Black leaders, that you can only utilize the one. Secondly, most people who quote Martin Luther King have no idea about Martin Luther King Jr. They know nothing of his life. They know nothing of his struggle. They know nothing of the concept of the riots after his death. They know nothing about the lawsuit that Coretta Scott King and her family brought against the American government, and they prevailed in 1999, showing that the American government was complicit in the assassination of Martin Luther King. They know nothing of this. They literally saw a quote and they're like, riots are the voices of the unheard. We understand you're regurgitating information. Thank you so much. Now understand it.
My friend Winston came on the other day and was talking about how also he's sick and tired of people quoting Martin Luther King to him because even if you're trying to say he was peaceful, he died. He was assassinated. He was murdered. So
murdered.
He was murdered. So what are you trying to say when people say you should be more like him? What are you actually trying to say?
You should be more like him, being hosed in the streets, being attacked by dogs. People forget an overwhelming majority of the United States were very much anti Martin Luther King Jr. Very much so.
Right.
Specifically, it was an overwhelming amount of people thought that civil rights and Black rights were extremely unnecessary, and that those people, quote unquote, were also whining, nagging, and complaining. Now, all of a sudden, when you look back, everybody was on the right side of history. Yet, what happened to all those people in those pictures? What happened to all those police officers? What happened to all those white people? They had kids. They had kids, and their kids became police officers as well. They had kids. That's the difference in the struggle. There's a huge difference in the struggle between Martin Luther King's civil rights and now. And I will explain this because it goes to the attitude of many people in this country. The concept is, a lot of people throw out the term, but it's so much better now. And they are correct. Racism, and Will Smith said this so beautifully. He said, racism isn't more, it's just being filmed. And that's the truth. We're seeing it better. It's not like the numbers are more. We can see it with our own eyes everywhere. Social media allows that. So this is the best racism has ever been, but it's still pretty bad. It's still very much systematic, and it's still
What do you
very much
mean when you
oppressive.
say it's the best it's ever been? You mean it's the least it's ever been?
Exactly. This is the least amount of black people, quote unquote, that police have killed in the history. What do you think it was like in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s? I use those years because they are now. What do you think it was like in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s?
Right.
What do people think it was like then? And people are like, but that's so long ago. Those people are still alive.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King is the same age as Barbara Walters. The same Barbara Walters that's on The View every single day is the exact same age as Martin Luther King, as he would be, of course,
Yeah,
if he
of
wasn't
course.
assassinated.
I want to go back to something you talked about earlier to get your opinion on it, because frankly, I feel like I don't get to have an opinion on this, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And I don't think I should get to have an opinion on this, but the looting. Talk about the looting and not being, I guess the word would be, a fan of it.
I'm not, I'm against the looting. The looting, sure, some of it's frustration, but a lot of it is people taking advantage of the confusion of the protest, taking advantage of the guise of the riot. A lot of people, I've never seen people this organized as criminals. This is like a company of looters, and I've seen it firsthand. I've seen protesters try to stop looters. I've seen all of this.
So
Protesters.
what happens? Like you're on the ground. So
Yeah.
paint us the picture. You see protesters peacefully protesting, and then looters are breaking into some store, and the protesters are doing what?
So protesters are not looters, and looters are not protesters. And honestly, I've seen this with my own eyes. There's a group of people protesting peacefully, amazing, wonderful, peaceful protest, which was organized this past Saturday. People were at the Grove, and they were walking, and there was this police car that was clearly a police car that is not in use. It's older. It's much older than the police cars we've seen. You can tell.
I need clarification on this because I've heard
seen
multiple
this.
different stories.
I've seen this. This
I
isn't
heard
a
that the
story. I have video.
No, but I know it's not a story, but I'm confused on. I heard that the cops put that there and told people they could demo it. Is that what took place?
Honestly, I don't know about that in that regard. I heard the same thing, but I do not know. All I know is that the protesters did not touch the car. I have all the video. 4 white gentlemen with bandanas came in. Some had skateboards, some had bricks, and they destroyed the car and set it on fire. When they set it on fire, they started kicking the car and just damaging the car and setting it on fire. Afterwards, the news was there. Afterwards, remember, none of these people that did this were black. The news was there, and people wanted to take pictures. It was a great picture, photo op. I'm not going to lie. I wanted a picture myself.
It's a flaming cop car.
Flaming cop car. It's a great backdrop for Insta, right? Who doesn't do it for the clout? So we see this thing. Then there's a group of there's a group of black people, and when I say a group, because the protesters were extremely diverse, ethnically, religiously, gender-wise, just a diverse group of people. There was this group of black kids who were walking by. They started taking pictures, and that's when the news cameras came out and started recording. And I walked in front of the news. I was like, "Hey, they did not do this. Please stop trying to create that narrative. These people did not do this."
Because and what did they say?
And the news reporter, this lady who I did not recognize, the news reporter basically stopped recording, but tried to get it in. She realized I wasn't going anyway, and then she stopped recording. And I stayed there long enough for her to move away. I didn't touch her. I wasn't aggressive towards her. I did none of that. I simply stopped the misinformation that I saw. And I've seen so much misinformation. Just today, I saw a video of a man who was on top of a car throwing money into the crowds. And people wrote, "This is the looters stealing our money." And I wrote, "This is actually the rapper Blueface distastefully giving homeless people in Skid Row $100,000 during Christmas." And this video is from December 24th, 2019. And I posted the original, and I was like, this has nothing to do with the looting or the rioting at all.
Yeah. Did you see the Trump Hitler
Yes,
photo also.
of course.
There's just
The
so many
Bible,
things.
the
Yeah.
Bible, and then now all of a sudden everyone has the original photo. My question is, where did you get the original photo in the first place? Why did you just have that at your ready?
Yeah, and then you see the original, and there's no Bible in his hand at all. But
Sure.
I'm with you. I saw that trending #1 yesterday. The
Of course.
Hitler.
The Hitler
Uh,
thing. And I'm not a fan, by the way, I'm not a fan of people creating misinformation to discredit President Trump either. I'm not a fan of that either. It's not like I'm saying don't create misinformation when it comes to me, but do so for some. No, President Trump does enough things that you
yeah,
don't
there's
need
enough.
to
You don't need to. I
discredit
agree.
him erroneously. There
I
are enough
agree.
things that you can pinpoint and talk about anybody.
Yeah, and one of the only things I actually can speak on, obviously, and you can too, Tehran, for anybody who doesn't know, Tehran and I are part of the same Jew tribe. But whenever there's a comparison from Trump to Hitler, I actually kind of cringe a little bit because it's like, that's not, I don't think that's helpful because it's not accurate and it's confusing. In what ways are you comparing him to Hitler? And I think that causes people to say things like, how could you call him Hitler when he's not? And it's distracting. It's
Sure.
distracting from what the actual argument is.
The
Yeah.
semantics of it is extremely distracting. The metaphor of it is something that people are trying to project. Hitler is reasonably the worst. I don't even like using the term human being, the worst tyranny which we have seen,
dictator, right?
specifically in the modern world. This person was just horrible. The atrocities that were done under his regime, disgusting and despicable in every way. People are trying to impress upon others that President Trump is a slippery slope to becoming Hitler. That's a metaphor, it's an analogy. We often create extremism for the purposes of analogies and metaphors. However, the message gets lost. And when the message gets lost, I simply say, I understand. Let's use a different message that won't get lost.
Right.
Let's use something that's more definitive. So I'm a big fan of that. I am not a fan of ad hoc arguments. As a person who is half Persian, half Black, I'm half Muslim, half Jewish. I'm this bridge between people. And therefore, maybe a perspective I have is that we're all much more similar than we are different. And if we can discuss, we will oftentimes find a true middle ground.
It was really beautiful. It really was. I always, when you're very, Tehran, I wrote this in my tweet, but you are one of the smartest people I've ever met. And I think that you use your words very carefully and poignantly. And I love thinking of you as the bridge. I feel like that's a good nickname for you. You already have your name, Tehran, but I might start calling you Bridge.
I know.
Let's go to the people and see what they're talking about. Appreciate you guys in the chat. Larry Lee says, love you, Roxy. Guys, hit that like button. Subscribe. That's always Larry's first comment, reminding you guys the more eyes and ears we get on this video, on these videos, the better. So please do so. Like Larry said, appreciate that. Also coming in, Ben Jones says, one of the things I love about my culture as a Black person is our way of being hilarious and have fun regardless of what we face.
I agree, Ben. We are hilarious as a culture, and no other culture has been as oppressed and been able to create something when you given such horrible situations. Jewish people have been very good at doing this as well. Also, a group of hilarious people, just to let you know.
That makes you perfect to be a stand-up then. Lewis Cox, love you, Roxy, and also love to Tehran. I'm here to listen and learn.
Thank you, Lewis.
Me too, Lewis. I feel very similarly. I want to get to some of the Patreon questions as well and the Streamlabs questions. Let's go into the Patreon, starting with Weston. So I don't know if I have the answer to this. I don't know if you do, maybe, but he says, what needs to happen to end these rightful protests from a legal standpoint? That's Weston Ira's question.
That's actually a great question. That is a great question. And I am, if someone's able to answer that question, I would love to hear the answer. The answer is because this is a very extremely unprecedented time, and not because of the way the struggle exists, but because of the way our president is deciding to act. And that
Right, with
what makes it
military
extremely.
and whatnot. Mhm.
Exactly. Imagine the fact that think about it this way. We live in a country right now that took months to deal with a pandemic and 1 day to militarize against protests. That is where we're living right now. It's a very unique situation, historically, even, is being in this situation. Once again, I'm not specifically targeting or blaming President Trump like so many people are doing. However, when it comes to the concept, this is all I say. Whether you like his politics or not, a lot of Democrats would be like, we hate President Trump. Well, which Republican candidate would you prefer? Which Republican candidate would you have accepted? If the answer is none, then simply you don't understand the democratic process. This is how it works. One person wins, another person loses. Don't boo, vote. You should be more concerned about the fact that we only get 2 candidates and when it comes to the president, and 52 candidates when it comes to Miss America, even. Like, we should be way more concerned about that. But we think about it in this terms, right? The only thing I say about a president is a good leader is one that unites his people and thinks of their interests and the common good simultaneously and does what's best for everybody concerned. Does President Trump do this or not? That's the only classification. It's a question only you can answer. You can think about it. You can ponder on it on your own time. But that's the only thing. So that's the only reason legally there are very ineffective ways to end this protest. Now, what we can do is we can create policy that basically reforms policing practices. We can create policy that basically reforms hiring and practices. We can create laws and policies against racial profiling and targeting.
But you're talking about years. I mean, those things take years.
Of course they do. Of course they do. However, a step towards that is something that begins the process. Currently, we have not taken a single step towards that. Just remember, the only reason Officer Chauvin or even the vigilantes against Ahmaud Arbery were arrested, it wasn't because they cared. It was because we cared.
I know.
And by we,
I know.
it means we the people. We the people, regardless of what color, race, creed, motto these people are, it's because we cared. That's the problem. And this isn't about being anti-police. This is about anti-police brutality. And if you think they're one and the same, then that's a bigger problem.
Yeah. So from the legal standpoint, Weston, again, like Tehran said, I think that people don't seem to have the answer to that right now. I know it was this morning that the 4 other cops were arrested and the charge was changed to 2nd-degree murder. That was this morning, right?
It was.
So we'll see. I don't know what stops the peaceful protests. How long, Tehran? What do you think? How long do you think people will be protesting for?
Well, giving a sociological standpoint, the conditions for protesting and rioting are perfect. It doesn't get better than this. We were quarantined. So many people are out of work. There are no sports. There are no distractions. There's an abundance of social media.
It's hot out.
The weather is good. I mean, to be very frank, the number of people that will attend your funeral really depends on one thing: the weather. And so we have this.
Don't fucking say that.
But it's true. But it's true. And that's what I do is I can create something so dark and add great comedy. The conditions, this is a perfect stirring mixture pot of protests and riots. I actually posted about this in March. And when I say March, I mean early March, before there was quarantines, before anything. And some of my friends have come to remind me and be like, how did you know this was going to happen? And it's because from a socio-political and economic standpoint, this is how calamity is formed. This was the powder keg. A lot of people think that the concept is, we've arrested those cops. This isn't about George Floyd specifically. George Floyd is now an idea. It's an idea of injustice. It's an idea of inequality. It's an idea of the lack of liberties and civil rights. It's now an idea, and that's the problem, is that ideas, unlike people, cannot be killed.
Going into the chat, Lauren Levitt, love this Netflix video. It's about the racial wealth gap. Going off the convo with RB3, who was our guest a couple days ago. It shows how to fix education will help. The only real answer is like reparations. I wanted to ask your opinion on this because RB3, who was on here, I think it was on Monday, he was talking about reparations and feeling like reparations are due. What do you think about that?
I think reparations is a very oversimplified concept. I think that there is no legal precedent for reparations other than, of course, Holocaust survivors and Native Americans, which are both poor examples of reparations, to be very honest.
Yeah.
So we have these ideas, and there are much more complications when it comes to Black society. And reparations are a process. 40 acres and a mule, also a process, a promise that was made that was taken away immediately. So the conversation of reparations is not one, especially towards African Americans and descendants, is not an easy one to have, not only because it's uncomfortable, and as a country, we will have to then truthfully discuss the disgusting atrocities of our past and current conditions. Not only would we have to explain them and continue the conversation of how they continue, but to come up with a price for that.
How do you even start that? How do you even say like a price? I mean, just you saying that, what is that? The price of pain, the price of suffering? How do you even, where do you start? And is it the same price for everybody?
You know, even in insurance right now, this is one of the saddest truths. This isn't my opinion. I very rarely give opinions.
I know that about you. What did we just lose behind you?
We just lost one of my Banksy posts.
Oh.
Yeah, it just fell behind the couch. I just post a lot of truths, and people can be offended by them. The funny thing about the truth is the truth needs no belief, whether you believe it or not. Facts don't care about your feelings. Now, this is something famously that one of my favorite people, actually, Ben Shapiro, says. And when I say favorite people,
he's one of your favorite people?
He's one of my favorite people. He's intelligent, he's articulate, and he's so wrong. It's amazing for someone who's so educated and articulate to be so wrong.
I interviewed him once. It's very challenging to talk to him. It's very hard.
I can imagine, because this is the epitome of hard-headedness. This is the epitome of a little bit of information is so dangerous. And he has a lot of a little bit of information. A lot of the things and the concepts, especially in regards to comparing struggles, it's not enough to just walk a mile in someone else's shoes. You actually have to walk with their legs and their knowledge of how to walk, and then see how far you will get. I get into this conversation with a lot of immigrants, being a person who has immigrant heritage, myself, immediate immigrant heritage myself. My father is Iranian. I get into this conversation because a lot of Iranians will confront me and say, but Iranians, we came here with nothing. Now look at us. We're doing so well. And I have two concepts that I put out to them. First of all, Iranians came here with nothing financially many times, but most of them were extremely educated. They came from a good beginning in Iran. If you ask them, their families were made up of doctors and lawyers and engineers. And so they came to this country and continued that tradition, that vast amount of knowledge. You can never take away education or knowledge from a people. You cannot. In the Jewish tradition, that's why the Torah and shul, the temple, is so important, because it's a constant source of education and shows a pride in knowing one's culture. People will often say, I'm this. Well, Black Americans don't get that luxury of privilege. Right. They don't get to talk about their heritage and compare it to a strength. The heritage that comes in is the same misnomer that many people have. Black history seems to begin, in America at least, with slavery. That's number one. Number two, a lot of these immigrants discuss with me how hard their struggle was in their country, how difficult it was, how much more oppressive and racist and violent it was. Bigotry in their countries was rampant. It's so much better in America. And I agree. They had a system that was extremely oppressive but they left. They came to America. They left the systematic disenfranchisement of their country of origin and came here. Where can Black people go? We're here. We're already here. That we are here now. There's nowhere for us to go. Canada doesn't want us. Thank you, Drake. They're tired. Like, there's nowhere for us to go. That would be like me telling you there's a woman who was married to a man who beat her 10 times a day. She gets the strength, divorces him, and marries a new man who now beats her 3 times a day. Would anyone be like, wow, that's such a great husband. That guy's great. At least you're not getting beat 10 times. It's only 3. Right. You would take action. You would want her to take action.
But for her, you would want her to remarry somebody who beats her no times.
Exactly.
So what is the comparison here? What if there's nowhere to go? What do we do?
Nothing else, you would be very sympathetic.
Right.
And that's the number one cause of the frustration is the lack of awareness. You know how many people, it's almost the concept of denial. It's because accountability will always feel like an attack when you're not ready to accept responsibility. And as a country, we're not ready to accept responsibility. We're not. Therefore, it feels like an attack. That's what it feels like to talk about racism. How many people are actually denying racism? Well, we had a Black president. Never mind the fact that this Black president was equally as much white as he was Black, if not more so, being raised by his white mother. But we had a Black president. That solves everything. That is a lack of awareness. That is what causes frustration, the dismissal. When people were kneeling, it was dismissed. When people spoke to the lawmakers in the Congress, it was dismissed. And now they're burning cop cars.
Speaking of kneeling, what did you think about the NFL statement? Did you see when they put out Black Lives Matters and they have been fully behind this movement now after everything that happened with the kneeling?
That's actually one of the tragedies of and discourse of rioting, protesting. The tragedies is it's much like the quarantine. If it works, everyone will be like, well, we never needed it in the first place. So whenever you complicate things, whenever you just like mix it all up, we always learn in hindsight, 2020, right?
Right.
So kneeling was very problematic, and NFL executives have now come out and stated that Colin Kaepernick was specifically banned from NFL because of the protests. That was it. There's no longer a discussion. There's no longer a conspiracy. They have admitted to it.
Right.
So Colin Kaepernick kneeling, a lot of people were pro-kneeling, anti-kneeling. I understood the kneeling. I wasn't specifically pro-kneeling. It's a business. They were looking out for their business. Whatever we need to do to sell tickets. I can understand that. I did not condone the NFL's response, but I can understand it. I was a fan of the kneeling, but I can understand why people were not. I understand it. However, the kneeling, no one paid attention. People focused on the kneeling. As much as everyone hates the rioting and the looting and the protesting, how many people are paying attention? How many people are now taking notice? How many people is this now become a discussion? How many news reporting agencies have picked up this story?
I think the answer is everyone. Is that what you believe too?
I mean, it's most people. I mean,
Yeah.
You'd have to be remiss to not pay attention at this point. So
yeah,
I don't condone it, but I understand it.
I hear you.
And that's the thing. A sane person will never condone. However, a rational person can easily understand.
I want to get to some of these Streamlabs guys. Thank you for submitting in here. Streamlabs.com/Roxy Stryer. I know that we went dark yesterday, and I know I told you guys I wouldn't go dark for all of quarantine. So I'm sorry for me saying that, because I obviously thought that for a greater cause yesterday that I needed to, but there were some things that came in and I want to address them. Morse code. Just so you know, I read this. You said, I really don't have a logical reason, but I don't feel comfortable making a Streamlabs account. Blurs in the Hood is not letting me donate without one. If you would send $20 to their stream today, I would appreciate it. Thank you. So that's my friend Jay and Winston. Jay's actually coming on tomorrow, and I'll make sure they get your $20. So for sure. Thank you for doing that Morse code, and I'll make sure that gets sent to them. Zad in here just showing support. Appreciate that. Matt M says, okay, this is a 3-parter. He says that you don't have to read this on air. I never know when you guys say I don't have to read it on air, if you would prefer that I do or that I don't. So if you're saying I don't have to, I figure that means that maybe you still want me to. Oh, that looks good.
Yeah. Just making it a little better.
What do you think when somebody says you don't have to read this on air? Do you think read it or don't read it?
Well, I appreciate the fact that they sent it in, and I do my best. At times, I'll keep them anonymous. A lot of times, people don't speak up because when they're honest, we attack them, and that's not fair. When someone's being honest, as long as they're not being conflictual or aggressive, they're just simply expressing a feeling, and that means that they're willing to listen to you possibly and change their mind. And so and you would be surprised how many people actually mimic their sentiment. So because of that, I am very aware, and I don't take most things personal.
This is just a kind message. Honestly, it says, I just wanted to show support, especially since you didn't have a show today. I'm a big fan of yours. You're great at what you do, and you're one of my go-to personalities for movie and TV commentary. Obviously, we're not talking much about that now. Your conversation the last few days with Winston RB3, as well as your fundraiser the other day, was absolutely incredible. Love hearing them speak. I appreciate you continuously using your platform for good. Proud to be your fan. Normally don't comment, but I just wanted to say that you continue to inspire me, and your hard work and passion, ability to create a welcoming community does not go unnoticed. Thank you for all that you do every single day. You guys make it so fucking easy.
I'm offended by that, by the way. So offended.
You are? Is that offensive?
That is offensive. Not once did he mentioned every other guest but me.
It was from yesterday. It was from it's true.
Hey.
You can still be offended.
You could have knew. You saw the post. You saw the post yesterday. I was posted yesterday.
Grumpy G says over 1,000 people are protesting tonight in Stockholm, Sweden. # Black Lives Matter. Well, I've been seeing all over, not just in the United States, some amazing, amazing protests that are happening with thousands of people. What do you make of that? That people not in the States seem to be protesting for the States right now?
Well, I'm going to quote Martin Luther King in this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
A threat to injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Right.
And so this is about injustice. Black Lives Matter is the concept, and there's this umbrella of injustice and inequalities and mistreatments that is felt amongst the masses. They are tired. We are tired of the system. The same exact reason why President Trump was elected is the exact same counterpoint reason that people are protesting. People are simply tired of the system, whatever that may be to them. Yeah. They are tired of it.
Glenn Caesar says, hello, Roxy and Tehran. Thanks for doing the show with us. I hope that you have the best Wednesday that you possibly can, given the circumstances. Glad to have you on live with the Roxy, Tehran. Looking forward to hearing the conversation and getting to know you more. # Rockstars Band. That was from earlier. And then also he put in a question in the Patreon. He said, Tehran, do you have any favorite activities that you like to do or music you like to listen to when you want to relax or unwind to lift your spirits and put you in a good place during this time?
Mostly Rage Against the Machine. I listen to Rage Against the Machine, puts me right in the high spirits. And I watch Netflix specials like 13. I watched the 13. So
wait, what is 13?
Oh, this is actually
I missed this.
A Netflix. It's definitely a show that I advocate everyone to go watch. It is by Ava DuVernay, the showrunner. She has this series, the show The 13th, and it discusses the 13th Amendment, which is specifically.
Oh, I know. Okay, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It's
I know.
brilliant.
I didn't see it.
It's educational. It gives you a strong perspective. There are a lot of shows on Netflix right now. Malcolm X, the movie's on Netflix right now. These should all be the number one. Like while Tiger King is there and Carol Baskin got Joe's Farm, We should be watching things like this, especially right now.
Wow, I can't believe that I didn't see it. Thank you for letting me know, and I will make sure that I go do that. Chris Martinez says, "Hey, this is my first time donating. Thank you so much for everything you're doing during this difficult time. I appreciate everything that you do and everything you stand for. Sending virtual hugs to anyone who needs. Thanks. I think that a lot of people need virtual hugs right now." And Tehran, we go all over the place on this show. So another question that came in from
Bring it
Maddie.
on.
I don't know if you're going to know the answer to this, but you do a lot of traveling for your stand-up, so maybe. Maddie B says, Tehran, favorite DC food spots.
Oh, I'm from DC.
Best place for a half smoke. Oh yeah,
I'm
best
from DC. That's why. And Maddie's getting at Ben's Chili Bowl, which is right there on U Street. It's a great spot. Definitely check it out.
What is a half smoke? Best place for a half smoke?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's just like a half smoke, but I don't smoke. So
a half smoke of wheat. I thought half smoke was like a way to smoke a pig or something.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't smoke a pig. I've never had pork in my entire life.
Oh, that is so crazy. I eat enough bacon for both of us, but it doesn't make my grandparents very happy.
No, I'm sure it doesn't. And then there's another spot. There's this poet spot that's in DC that's actually amazing too. That busboys and poets. That it's got very good food, but just the energy in that room, the awareness, it takes you back to the times of the Harlem Renaissance or the great American writers. It's got that feel to it. So
I still can't believe that you don't smoke. It doesn't fit. I mean, I only say that because like you're so funny and I smoke so often while listening to you be funny. So I feel like we're in on it together. Do you think never in your life will you ever?
I will most likely never smoke. I've never drank. I've never tried any drugs. And it's not because people always get it twisted as if I'm fundamentally or morally against these things. I am not at all. I am against cigarettes. I hate cigarettes. I wish no one smoked cigarettes. It's just a horrible activity. Marijuana is amazing. If the world smoked more marijuana, maybe the world would be a much better place. Alcohol, I'm against alcohol simply because a lot of atrocities have been done in the name and under the lack of sobriety of people. However, I'm not against these things. I just don't use them myself. Now, if they made the limitless pill,
What's the Limitless pill?
Have you not ever seen the movie Limitless, where Bradley Cooper takes the pill and becomes like it increases exponentially his intelligence exponentially, and he becomes brilliant? I would take that pill. Like I would OD on that pill. That would be my drug of choice.
I've never seen it. I love this from Jake Yacovetta. Fuck, I just lit a cigarette as he said that.
I just hate cigarettes. I understand, especially today. Now that we know that people were programmed to smoke, now that the Surgeon General is on the side of the package, just we're so aware of how much harm and damage smoking does. I'm just not a fan of cigarette smoking, just personally.
Yeah, no, I get it.
It smells, and if it didn't smell as bad, it wouldn't bother me as much. If it didn't smell, if it didn't have the smoke and secondhand smoke wasn't so bothersome, it wouldn't bother me nearly as much.
Larry Lee said, shout out to DC. You got to try Lincoln's Waffle Shop. I lived in Foggy Bottom.
Shout out to Larry Lee. He's becoming one of my favorite people.
Lincoln's Waffle Shop.
Yeah, it's a waffle shop. Sells waffles.
Is Foggy Bottom the name of a real place?
Foggy Bottom is not only the name of a very real place, it's actually a George Washington inspired place. So Foggy Bottom is one of the original parts of Washington, D.C. I
feel like I've probably been there.
Yeah, it's a major metro stop too. So if you've been to the Kennedy Center, if you've been to like Foggy Bottom, if you've been near Georgetown, you're in that area.
Okay. Well, then I've been. I didn't even know I was in a Foggy Bottom.
Yeah.
Len Caesar says, Roxy, yes, this has been a very beautiful conversation to listen to for sure. As Weston Ira said, Tehran is the avatar who was a bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds in the ATLA series. Is that Avatar, The Last Airbender? Probably. Tehran's a bridge between people, and I love it. No pressure though, Tehran. I mean, does that feel
It's such a good series. It's such a good series that's a great. That's like a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure. If you had thrown out something like Tehran is the Snyder cut of spirituality, I'd be like, I could do that. I could be the Snyder cut.
I can't even talk about the Snyder cut on this channel anymore. The amount of hate I took for that.
I'm sure I saw.
Oh, so crazy.
I know.
And then you see things like this happening, and it's like, are you guys fucking dumb? Like, there's so many real things that are happening in the world. What the fuck? Who cares? Who gives a fuck? How are you balancing right now? Because yes, you're a stand-up comedian, but you're also a host. You talk a lot about television. We met from AfterBuzz TV. How do you find ways in your soul and your heart and your brain to give a fuck about anything that isn't this right now?
It's actually inspiring to not only sometimes we all need a break and turn our minds off, but I actually see the future. The young people in this world right now, they're way more likely to hate you because they're DC fans and you like Marvel than being black or white.
And that's inspiring?
That is inspiring because that's the concept. Boxes are meant for things and not people. Whenever we generalize or stereotype a group of people, anyone who hates entire groups of people is extremely problematic. Meet someone, speak to them individually, talk to them for 5 minutes, and you will hate them individually. And that's perfectly fine. That is perfectly okay. You will hate most people as soon as you talk to them, which is perfectly fine.
What makes you say that?
Because when you talk to people, you'll be like, what do you mean a Snyder cut? What do you mean Superman's better than Batman? Whatever it is, it's an objective personality trait and not a generalization. That is the difference between racism and preference. And if we get to a point where we can prefer rather than generally hate, the world will be a much better place.
But then you're saying that people, this generation is more likely to hate somebody based on their comic book preference. And yes, of course, that's better than hating somebody based on their color of their skin. But shouldn't we be trying to eliminate hate from the vocabulary if we can?
No. And that's one of the things that I speak about heavily when we talk about, for example, guns. I don't want to live in a country where I'm not allowed to own a gun. I want to live in a country where I don't want one. There's a difference. And when it comes to Superman, Batman, or X-Men versus Justice League, or whatever it is, Avengers versus Justice League, however you want to place it, very rarely is a police officer going to kill you over that fact. It's a conversation, it's a discussion, and we all enjoy and we have fun and we talk about it for hours and we move on. No one's killed someone because
you're saying that as a normal person, but like there's so many people out there that have stalkers and people threatening their lives. I mean, it happened to me fucking a week ago where because I didn't believe the Snyder Cut existed, that people are messaging me that they're going to come murder me in my fucking sleep. Like, that's psychotic, no?
Okay, so let me just clarify. When I wrote you that, Roxy, I wasn't being serious. Like,
I didn't want to out you
in your sleep. Okay.
I sleep with a really big knife next to my bed. Try.
I know, and you're a very light sleeper. So what I meant was we could have like a knife fight. But whenever listen, people will always take any point of view that anyone has, anything, and make it an extreme, no matter what it is. We see this every day. We see this with the intention of religion, which seems to be very good and nurturing and endearing. People will read one part. 99% of a religion will be like, we love your neighbors, love each other, tolerate, don't judge.
Don't steal.
Exactly. And then one point will be like, okay, well, maybe if that happens, then you can hit him, but punch him. It says punch him. Let's punch him. Like, yo, whoa. What about what? No, punch him. That just depends on people. We get to choose. And so my thing is, I would rather people choose to interact with one another. Of course, the choice, given any rationality, will always be love. And if we get to a level where what we're hating, quote unquote, each other for is Superman over Batman, then trust me, we're 100,000 times closer to love. Just find love, find the common ground. It happens. Yeah. It happens very often. We can all, out of everybody that's ever said anything in the world, ever in the history of the world, one of the most ingenious, most simple things was uttered by a man who faced adversity himself. Rodney King said, "Can't we all just get along?" Yup, we really can.
You think we can? You really do?
I think that we have the capability. I
Mhm.
think that we have the capability, but what we have is hate. Hate never takes a day off. Hate keeps working. Hate, power, greed, all these things keep working. So love has to work overtime just to catch up.
What do you think about I'm just going back again. I'm all over the place with you, but when it comes to again comedy and what's going to happen with art in the future, what happens after this? How does that affect or change, or are we going to be seeing, is every movie or TV show for the next several years going to be either about coronavirus or Black Lives Matters? Is that what everything we're going to see in comedy? What do you think the scope of this is going to be?
Well, one of the basic tenets of art is art imitates life. And right now, this is
Yeah.
our life. So artists, there are artists, there are people who are being shaped by this experience. So for you and I, we've had a basis. You know, one time I remember I was watching Three's Company. It's this sitcom that was on, I think, in like the 80s.
Tell me what you just had to tell me what 13 was, but don't tell me what Three's Company is.
I wasn't saying it for you. That's the whole point. You and
Mhm.
I would be very familiar with the concept of Three's Company.
Mhm.
My little sister, my youngest sister, was watching it with me.
How old is she?
She's now, I think she's now like 24.
But at the time she was.
But at the time, she was like maybe 17, 16.
Okay.
In high school sometime. Could have even been younger. I never really know. So we were watching. I never really know with them, you know? We were
No,
watching.
I don't know at all. Wait, what?
Yeah, I'm really horrible with birthdays, and like they have to text me and they have to like remind me.
How many siblings do you have?
There's 5 of us total. So to
Okay.
me, they'll always all just be young. You know, they'll be the people that all to me, all their jobs in life is to bring me the remote, even though it's right next to me. You know, that's what a good older brother does.
Yeah,
So,
I feel that. I have one.
yeah, exactly. And so my sister was watching and she was like, "This isn't funny." It was one of those times where Chrissy and Janet couldn't find Jack because they were all in different rooms.
Okay.
And they couldn't find each other. And I was like, "This is hilarious." She's like, "No." She's like, "They can't find each other. What's funny about that?" I was like, "Because they can't find each other." And she's like, "Why don't they just call each other?" Because to her mind, there was never a time before where there weren't cell phones, where you couldn't just text or call someone. She's like, "Why don't they just call each other?" And that is the truth. There are people right now that are going to be shaped by the quarantine and by the protests and the riots and looting, whether for better or for worse. This is the most Dickens of all eras. It is the best of times. It was the worst of times. They're going to be shaped by that. And that's what they're going to grow up.
This is the best of times? You think that this is the best and the worst of times?
Yes. For anybody who asks me
you have
the
to
question,
explain that. You have to explain.
people ask me this question: what era in time would you love to be born? Because we romanticize the past so much. The past always looks bright and the future looks so bleak. We look at the past and it's like, when would you like to be born? The Middle Ages, in the 40s, the roaring 20s? No, the roaring 20s? No. Bubonic plague and segregation doesn't sound fun to me. We actually live in the best of times when it comes to, we have the most amount of information at the touch of our fingertips. We have communication. We have a World Wide Web. We are close to each other in social media. We have a democratic situation for the most part in the United States. We have access to YouTube and programs like Roxy. You know, Roxy, who would you be if you were in the 30s? You know,
I have no fucking idea.
You think you'd be Amelia Earhart, but you'd probably be Amelia Johnson. Like, that's the problem. We actually live in a great time.
Who would you be in the 30s?
That's the thing. I would probably, unfortunately, be in a lot of trouble in a lot of places. That's why I live in a time where I can speak up about these things. And even though many people disagree, when it comes to freedom of speech, if you don't believe in freedom of speech for those you disdain, you don't believe in freedom of speech. And I live in a time where I can speak about this, and there are countries, unfortunately, that are unable to do so. And they are looking at us and realizing that they should be allowed to do so. We're more aware. The world is a small place after all, and it's beautiful, and we're the most aware of it now. Our generation recycles. We think about each other. Our generation is the one that is talking about healthcare for everyone as a human right. Our generation is the one that's like, racism is stupid. Look at you and me. You know, honestly, in our life, not in our lifetimes, but in our parents' lifetime, this would have been illegal for you and I to speak in this manner. And the reality of the situation is people have been lynched for something that we're doing right now so freely.
That's where my ignorance really shines, because I need to let myself actually know that, because I know that, but I don't ever think about that.
Of course not, because it's extremely uncomfortable and it's not fun to think about these things.
Well, less than not fun, it feels impossible that could be a truth. And it is the truth. So,
And that's why it's the best of times, because we live in a time where it can feel impossible that's the truth, when before it would have been probable that that was the truth.
is there a world in which this gets worse?
Of course
Do
there
you
is.
you think that is as likely as a world in which this gets better?
The one thing this world has shown me is that anything's likely. I'm about to tell you a very intricate story. There was this woman. She was born without a vagina. It's an affliction that affects, a very rare affliction, but it affects a very small percentage of women. They have no, what we would think of as opening for a vagina. She was in a relationship, depending on who gives this version of this factual story. She was in a relationship with one person, was then engaging in intimate acts and oral sex with another. The first person comes home, sees this, gets irate, stabs that guy and stabs her as he is basically in their moment of coitus. She goes to the hospital. The wound is infected. She goes to the hospital. They take care of it. She goes back several times for pain where she was stabbed in her stomach and her abdomen. She goes back several times. They keep testing her. 9 months later, she goes in with terrible stomach pains. She's pregnant. The sperm from the person went on the knife and impregnated her ovaries because of the wound. Now, this would sound impossible if it wasn't true, and in medical it's like a medical case that's actually studied. That is how much everything that we think is impossible is actually fairly probable, impossible. Whenever you think of anything.
Did she end up having the baby?
She did.
Like a C-section?
She did.
How did you hear about? I've never heard of this.
Well, first of all, I read a lot of obscure medical journals just because I love House and I want to know how many times it actually is lupus. So I actually read a lot of House. But it really came down to, this was a story that was put out there. Most people didn't pay attention to it, but you can go look it up. You can look it up. And that's why this is an example to me of the universe saying, it's possible. So is life. It's both hopeful and sad in one single story. A horrible thing that led to a beautiful thing that is a horrible thing, and something we would think is improbable. I think of this because it's like, is the world going to get better or worse? It's entirely up to us.
If you had to predict, which I know you don't love doing because that it requires you to give your opinion, but if you had to predict, what do you see happening right now?
I think if I had to predict, I think that we will unfortunately learn in the worst of ways how many real problems exist, and how race and religion and sexuality and sexual orientation are not real problems. I think that there are real problems that exist.
What are you calling real problems?
Environment is a real problem. The environment, regardless of people were like, oh, the environment is degrading. Now, whether this is because of the greenhouse effect or not, sure, who cares? Maybe science is wrong, right? Sure. However, the environment, well, it happened. That's actually what happened with coronavirus. A lot of people don't realize it. The experts actually did all these systems and models, and they came up with all these solutions. The one thing they didn't calculate for was simply the fact that people just wouldn't believe them. They'd never calculate. Why would you not believe an expert? This is a person. They were like, I've been to Harvard, Yale, Oxford. I've been doing this in the field for 30 years of my life. I've been an epidemiologist, a virologist. I've been just studying this course examination forever. I never expected Johnny, who is a part-time stalker at Walmart, to just not believe me. I never expected that would happen. And
I was just watching Hassan Minaj's Patriot Act. He just did he did a one on COVID, but it was like somebody who makes these masks was like, I've been shouting about this since 2007 and explaining exactly why this was coming. And this is what I do. This is what I study. This is my whole world. And just nobody.
100%. How do you think it must feel for Bill Gates? This is a guy who made $100 billion. He's done nothing but give, philanthropy, go to Africa, try to help everyone in the world. He studies all this stuff and does models. He does not models physically, not in that way, but he creates models of these things. And then he gives a speech about it. And then he wakes up one day. He's like, honey, let me go check the internet. Let's see how much people are appreciating me right now. I just donated another $1 billion to this cause. And he clicks on it and they're like, Bill Gates did it. Like, look, he's doing it. He's like, what? I mean, that's just how we are. And unfortunately, people don't know. The bigger problem is the fact that we see conspiracies everywhere because of how many conspiracies there have been. Don't get me started.
You mean conspiracies that have been proven to be true?
100%. Let's start with Tuskegee experiment. Specifically, a group of Black men were given syphilis in a town. Then they were told by the government that they are going to help cure them with these painful spinal taps. Even though, by the way, the medicine was available. The medicine was available. A lifelong, painful procedure of going through syphilis and dying, which, by the way, some of them didn't die until about 10 years ago, just so they could study. And when they got found out, the government's like, well, we've been doing it for 20 some years. We might as well finish now. That's literally something that happened. It's not my opinion. It's
what
real.
Is the thing I heard about this? I wish I knew more so I didn't sound so ignorant right now, but there was a bunch of scientists, I believe in Asia, who thought that we should take a group of people from Africa and give them COVID to test COVID and see and start like live experimenting on people in Africa. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not aware of the people in China. I was aware of the French doctors who said that we should test
It might have been
out on our Black population, and that's France.
Maybe that was France. I think I said Asia, but it might have been in Europe. Yeah, that might be what it is. Whatever. Maybe it was because this is when things were really rampant in Asia. But yeah, I read that and was like, what?
Don't worry, you're an American. Basically, once you leave America, it's all the same. It's like, oh, this is kind of popular tourist attraction. This is where you can buy prostitutes. This is like kind of terrorists live here. That's kind of how we all like how the country lumps up the rest of the world. It really is. It really is. Africa is really small. This huge continent. Africa. Oh, where are you from? Africa? Yeah, because Africa is just one place. Africa and Louisiana are about the same size. So, like that's the American mindset, unfortunately.
Oh no! Did I just do that? I just had the American mindset.
You did not. You did not. You mistold a story, and I ran it.
But I prefaced it with, "This is going to come out ignorantly because I don't know where it was."
But you weren't sure. That's the problem. We're inundated with news so much that we actually.
I wasn't sure who said it. Yeah.
Yeah. News becomes saturated. Even the news cycle. At this point, there was a time where Tom Brokaw or whoever came on the news and told something in a factual way. Now everything's basically an opinion.
Except for you.
Everything's basically opinion. I simply post facts. I have opinions, but I post factual elements, or even if I present an argument, it's in a very logical way. logical manner. I don't post just like, I'm tired of people being tired and I hate. I don't do that. That's not a form
Doesn't
of
sound
argument.
like you. No,
Yeah.
I can't hear you doing that. By the way, shout out to Ryan Nilsson, amazing AfterBuzz producer, who's in here listening to us. He says 2 of the best people on the internet. Tehran is in the house, taking notes. Appreciate that, Ryan, who's awesome. I know we do have.
I've never met him. Is he a nice guy? Is Ryan a good guy? I've never met the guy.
Are you making a joke?
I love Ryan. I bother him all the time. I have to.
I do too.
Yeah,
I do too.
Ryan is one of the best people, and he's extremely competent, which is one of my favorite qualities of any human being.
You and I share that.
Yes, we do.
We share that. Incompetency is very challenging for me.
Very.
That's a tough one.
I'm a very patient person. I'm not specifically a tolerant person. There's a difference. Patience is.
I feel like you're an incredibly tolerant person.
No, I'm an understanding people. People confuse the two all the time as well. I have a very low tolerance when it comes to incompetency.
Oh.
I have a very.
But you're still patient, but you're
I'm
not
extremely
tolerant.
patient. I'm extremely patient.
Oh, I don't have that.
Yeah.
I don't have the patience part of it.
I will wait at a green light. I will not honk my horn. I'll just, unless I'm like late for somewhere where I usually am, but I'll just wait. Eventually they'll go. I get it.
Damn.
I
don't understand that. I do not have that in me. As we are getting out of here, Tehran, I know that you said that you're doing this live stream for the Laugh Factory every day, but where can they find that? Where can they find you and all the things that you're working on?
Well, you can always find me at the Laugh Factory. That's at Laugh Factory HW on Instagram, Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. We have decided in honor of this week to take this week off. We've done the same thing, obviously, at AfterBuzz, which was a great decision. Just in respect, it doesn't matter which side of the pendulum you are on. This is about respect and being aware. It's about awareness, and so we're aware of it. And you can find me at I am Tehran all across the board. That's my Instagram, IAMTEHRAN. My name is the capital of Iran, so if you don't know how to spell it, just watch Fox News. And also, you can find me in these streets.
You're going to continue protesting in the streets even though you're not going to Laugh Factory right now?
I am. I continue with the protest because I believe in the spirit and the nature of the protest. And I am going to do my best to be a positive force in these protests. I have spent my weekends cleaning up businesses that were affected by the rioting and the looting. I have spent my days helping people as much as possible. I've been having discussions with people who have true questions and want to get a different perspective. I'm doing what I can do. So many people are so willing to change the world, and yet so few people are just simply willing to change themselves.
Everything you say, very good with the words. Chris Burke says, hi, Roxy, it's Avery. So Chris and Avery are a father-daughter duo that watch the show. Avery's a 12-year-old who we love. Says, hi, Roxy, it's Avery. Just want to say hi, watching you with my dog, Roxy, right now. LOL, love you. Avery, I'm really glad you're tuning in for this show because like Tehran's been talking about, I really think that this is a generational thing. And I think that the best thing we can do is teach and hope that generations below do it better than generations above.
100%.
Tehran, thank you so much for joining me today. Round of applause, everybody at home, for our
round of applause for
guest.
you for doing this. You do this every day. You're an amazing voice. I
don't know about that.
You are, and you lend your platform. You lend your platform to a lot of different people with different stories to tell. So I appreciate, and I mean this not just because I like you as a person or I like you as a friend. I've been a fan of you since the day we met. I've been,
and vice versa to you, and to you guys at home. Remember to continue telling me if there's somebody whose voice you think deserves to be amplified right now, or just in general, or somebody you want to see on the show. Just let me know, so that I can try to book them for the show. Also, I know that I was supposed to do this yesterday, but since we went dark, I just did want to show you guys. It's completely irrelevant to what we're talking about, but I painted my grandparents this because they've been very sad. So I wanted to show you guys. I know I started it with you guys, but I finished it yesterday. So I made a lion. And I know I told you guys I'd show you when I was done. So this is what it ended up looking like. That's for my 2 Leo grandparents who wish that they have been trying to ask me to go and protest right now, but they are 92 and 94. And with everything going on with COVID, we got to keep them safe. But this is the fighter that I'm sending them. So
I love
thank
it.
you guys.
I
Yeah.
love it. Can I request a Tehran painting? Like, how do we get you to do that? That's amazing.
That's the first thing I painted in years. I used to paint growing up, and then I don't know. I found the paints under my bed. It was a whole thing, and I was like, fuck it. Yeah, I'll make you something. What do you want? You
I
just
want
want
a Tehran. What else would I
you
want?
want you? Yeah.
Have you not seen? Have you not? Of course, you haven't seen my plays, but you haven't seen the stuff that I wear. All I wear
Wait,
is
you've seen my place, and I haven't seen your place.
Tehran
What's that?
Tehran gear. Yeah, I mean, your place is actually very nice.
That says
My place,
Tehran.
yeah, it says it in Farsi. So Tehran with a little bit of symbols.
It just looks so much prettier than our stupid language looks. Like there's something about the flow of that that's so gorgeous.
It's an artistically written language.
Yeah.
Farsi is one of the oldest languages still in use in the world today, amongst things like Hindu and Hebrew. So these are languages that are literally 5,000-6,000 years old that are still in use. A lot
Perfect, Murray. Thanks, Tehran. You should write a book.
I appreciate you, Garth. Thank you so much for even being in the chat and sharing. I appreciate a lot of people just for being here.
I know.
You don't even necessarily need to like me. Just be here.
I don't know, man. Every single person in here liked you. Like that was crazy. Everybody was saluting you. Let me throw up some of these. Was thanking you. Was sending you hearts. I mean, everybody was saying they agree with everything that you guys were saying. Not that we were saying, that you were saying. You got a lot of love in here today. So
I appreciate that. Look, it's not about, you don't have to agree. Understand. That is the biggest step in all of this. That is the biggest step in most things in life. Just being aware, just simply saying, I acknowledge your pain. You know how many times, think about it like this. It's a relationship. You're in a relationship, you're dating someone, and you have a gripe and you bring it up and they go like this: oh my God, you're crazy. You've literally just dismissed everything that person's done. That's why so many people hate being told to relax. That's why so many people hate.
I fucking freak about that.
Exactly. Being told to relax, being told they're crazy. Listen to the problem. Let's have a logical debate, discussion, conversation. Once you become dismissive, now it's an argument.
Right.
Let's have a conversation. You don't have to agree, but you can do your best as a human being to be compassionate and understand and express and discuss.
Glenn Caesar, what a fantastic show. 2 thumbs up. Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate that. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get out of here, guys. I know there's been some comments about this in here, and I will be addressing, obviously, Tehran, you probably don't know what's been happening in one of the communities I'm a part of, the Schmodown community. There were some comments from somebody that were very bad, and they have been removed from the community. So yes, I see you guys asking
me about that. You tweeted about that, right?
I don't think so. I don't even know what to say.
I mean, you've gotten so many threats. I don't know why.
Yeah, I know.
So amazing.
I'm very hated, and that's okay.
You're very loved too.
I'm very loved, and that I feel. So I'm okay being hated as long as I'm loved. I don't want it to be somebody people feel indifferent about. But yes, I will be addressing all of that. Because it needs to be addressed. And obviously it's not condoned on my part. I mean, what a fucking idiot, but that's for a different show. Also, just checking to make sure, but I'm pretty positive that Jay Washington has confirmed that he will be joining the show tomorrow. Yes, he has.
He's very funny, very good guy, knows a lot about comic books and civil rights. So I love
that. I love him too. He's freaking awesome. And then I think over the weekend, mutual friend of ours, Tehran, Daryl Kristen's going to come on. So great guests lined up. Yeah, we've got awesome people coming on the show. And then again, you guys let me know who you want to hear from. That's how I've been booking people. You guys let me know. So thank you, Tehran, so much for being here. Thank you guys at home for being here. Do your best to stay safe, keep fighting. And something that Tehran said, use his words to outro this because he was much more well-spoken than I. Thanks, Tehran, for being here. And we'll see you guys, or I'll see you guys tomorrow, 1 p.m. live at the Roxy.